Do you break out in hives at the thought of writing? Like you got to write an email, you got to write content, blog posts or articles. Is that something that makes you nervous? If so, you're not alone, especially as a tax professional. I mean, the percentage of people in general who consider themselves to be writers or good writers is probably pretty low. But when you think about tax professionals, a lot of you brilliant people are really numbers people. And a lot of times, numbers people aren't writers. It just, I mean, the two skills don't necessarily go together. And so, if it makes you nervous, let's talk about some things that you can do. This is a question that I got, and I actually get it a lot. So I want to talk about, just give you a few tips. The tricky thing is to actually become a good writer, and maybe that's not your goal. Maybe it's just getting comfortable enough to do it and to just improve as you go. But to become a good writer and to get increasingly comfortable, you do need practice. If you want to be authentic in expressing yourself through writing, you do need a little bit of practice. But there's ways to shortcut that and ways to get the job done without practicing. But I want to put that out there. Like anything else, writing is a skill that you learn by doing. I mean, there's other things you can do, but you need to learn by doing as well. Let me say this. You have to forget what you were taught in school or what was beaten into you in school. Good writing, in terms of communicating with potential clients and peers and things like that, it's not about grammar. It's not about, paragraph structure or about these things that you learned about in English class or that somebody gave you a bad test score, all the things that you had to do in school. It's not about any of that at all. It's really about me implanting my thoughts in your mind. And so you can, if at any point you say, oof, I don't like writing. Well, why don't you like it? There's a good chance you don't like it because you were taught that you weren't good at it, or, it was inferred to you that you weren't good at it because of what happened in school or it was hard. But really it's just communication. Just like talking. If you like to talk or you feel like you're good at talking, you can be good at writing. So first of all, throw out the rules. As long as you're communicating clearly, that's the key. And it's a good idea. Copywriters say this. Write how you talk. If that's the way that you communicate to other people through talking, it probably is pretty close to the way that you'll want to communicate. You have to clean it up a little, but pretty close to the way you want to do it in writing as well. With that in mind, writing doesn't have to be writing. You can, in many cases, just write a super short, whatever you're doing, email or social media, write a super short blurb directing people to listen to a video, for example. If you feel like you're more comfortable on video, send them to a podcast or send them to something else where you're in your comfort zone of speaking or doing whatever it is that you do. And so the writing doesn't have to be super long. The question is about writing, so I just want to hit this real quickly. You oftentimes don't have to write as much as you think. An email can be 50 words with a link to a video. Okay, social media. You can have a headline and a video. Pretend it's Instagram. I mean, just it's cool to do that. But also you can write, you can speak whatever the topic you want to cover. Get a transcription from an AI tool or what have you. Descript, for example. Get a transcript, and then you can take the transcript and clean it up a little bit, and you have an article, or you have a blog post, you have social media, whatever, and you can take the raw transcript and put it into another AI tool like ChatGPT or Claude AI, which I prefer for writing, and ask it to clean it up. Turn this into a blog post using my words and my tone. And the more you do that, you get skilled at using AI to write in your voice, but you're still using what you actually think rather than asking AI to come up with some ideas. Okay, so here's a couple other things. You need to read. If you want to develop your writing skills, read. Pick one or two writers that you really like in the space that you want to exist in, but it could or another space, but people whose voice you like, and read a lot of their content over time, and you'll gain. It's like working the muscle out by listening, or through reading, and you kind of soak up their style and you see things that they do that you like, and you can it begins to influence your writing. And of course, the more that you write and do your own practice, it will influence. I mean, that influence gets more and more subtle, but it can inform and help you to do what you're doing. Like having a personal trainer. I would encourage you not to try to emulate 20 people. Pick one or two people and just go deep into their writing. See how they express themselves and try to see how you can do the same thing for yourself. And again, practice. I think that's all the things I wrote down. Oh, one more thing that's key. And I should have said it in the beginning. Think in terms of stories. Stories are really the best kind of communication for even when it comes to numbers. There's a story behind the number, or there's a story behind how the number is derived. And when you begin to think in stories, the communication can happen more naturally, more fluidly, and it's received by the hearer or the reader in a way that it feels natural, it feels smooth, and the grammar and all these things, even though those things aren't important, becomes even less important when there's an interesting story. We can talk about story structure another time, but when you think about writing, see, is there a story I can add here? Or is there a kind of story element that I can bring to the table to make this more and more sound more and more human, to make it sound more and more palatable to whoever it is that you're talking to and interesting. So those are my tips on writing. Very brief, of course, there's a lot we could talk about, but that's all we're going to cover today.